Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
Welcome, GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Here again, GSMC, hosted on the GSMC Podcast Network is Ethan. We're going over my mock draft. We've gone through, let's see here, the first 5 rounds, basically. First 4, and we got a few more to go, clearly, as time is of the essence here. We're getting closer to the season, and we got to start prepping up and getting prepared. So, where we left off was at the beginning of the 5th round, where I kind of teased in, we saw a Keenan Allen sighting. So Keenan Allen went 5th round, 2nd pick. Zach Ertz was the first pick in the 5th round. And then Melvin Gordon. So we got a Melvin Gordon sighting. Then the Delvin Singletary hype crew came in, and he was drafted right after Melvin Gordon. Then Terry McLaurin. And I ended up getting Cam Akers. So Cam Akers not a guy I was targeting per se. And I have been in the situation where I don't want too many rookies on my team, because when you're depending on guys who have never been in the NFL for their first time, they may explode on the scene, right? They may have really good seasons, but they always hit a wall at some point. Everybody hits the wall. Now, the wall may not be as hard as other people's, but it definitely won't be as juicy as it was when they weren't hitting the wall. I promise you. And sometimes that might come back to bite you in the keister. And I didn't want something to bite me in the keister too much, right? I didn't want too many of those type of guys, especially for basically getting my second running back. He will be my running back too, but I ended up settling for him, and now we're in the real deal steal range for drafting. So the big names are basically gone, and you got to put in the time and turn on the jets, essentially. You got to get right. So DK Metcalf went right after Cam Akers. T.Y. Hilton went. So a T.Y. sighting. Now T.Y. has fell off as far as draft concerned, so that's something to monitor. Maybe we have slept on T.Y. a little too long. Maybe he has a resurgence, and we all have to sit here and eat our words. Then Kareem Hunt went after T.Y., Jarvis Landry, DJ Shark Jr., which honestly, considering the year that he had, unfortunately, this is just the reality situation. We don't know what that offense is looking like, and honestly, at any moment in time, the Jaguars could just blow everything up. Then Tyler Boyd went at the end of the 5th round. Everybody's favorite waiver wire pickup has now not been a waiver wire pickup any longer, really for the past 2 seasons, but Tyler Boyd was a beautiful guy to get off waivers a few seasons ago. I've done it. My friend's done it. He helped so many people out in times of need. And I think that's what a lot of people do with these wide receivers these days, because you can find one off waivers that's going to be hot for a little while, and he could help you stir the tide if things start to get ugly. And that's what you got to do sometimes. The 6th round was very interesting for a lot of different reasons. Now, Michael Gallup went first in the 6th round, then Devontae Parker, then DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift just recently had a little tweak, and he did not practice for the Detroit Lions. Granted, Detroit didn't practice at all a few days ago due to protests for Jacob Blake. And that was a very powerful message. I appreciated that from the Detroit Lions. And I appreciate all these sports trying to make a message and make a stand for what they believe in, because, yeah, like LeBron says, they are more than just an athlete. They have the right to protest. They have the right to speak their mind, just like everybody else in this country. So, Marquise Brown went 64th, so right after DeAndre Swift. Darren Waller, 65th. He wasn't somebody I was targeting this year. I guarantee you, because I think that he's due for some regression. And although I think he is a wonderful tight end to have, I think his average draft position is less to be desired. D.K. Dobbins went. And that was something that I felt was a little, I took Ronald Jones the second. Okay. So Ronald Jones is in a situation where he's with a very good veteran quarterback that we've known historically and have a fond memory of. We know that the wide receiver group for the Buccaneers are going to be stout, and they were stout last year with James Winston throwing the ball around, and we know the 30 touchdowns, the 30 turnovers thing has been overdone, but yeah, it happened. We get that. So it is imperative that we remember how people talk about certain players. Bruce Arians really loves Ronald Jones, and sometimes it doesn't always show in the stat line, but I think a lot of stuff gets misled, especially when your offense is led by a chuck the ball downfield type of guy. And I think Ronald Jones is due to have a really nice season this year because they're going to have to lean on the run game a little bit more than usual, because I don't think Tom Brady's arm is going to allow him to chuck the ball up and down the field like that. And I think there has been signs of Ronald Jones being able to be utilized not only in the run game, but also in the passing game. We understand that Keyshawn Vaughn is around, but he's still a rookie, and we don't know just how much of the target share he's going to end up getting in the first place. So I picked him up thinking that he would be a better version of a Mark Ingram, because Mark Ingram went right underneath. Then Deshaun Watson went, so that's the next quarterback. It took a little minute, but here we are. A.J. Green went 70th. Then Stephon Diggs, then Will Fuller. So A.J. Green, maybe he's set up for a comeback. We don't know. But 5th round, or 6th round, should I say, is something that, I never really figured I would see. Here is where I made some baller moves, in my opinion, or I made a baller move here. So in the 7th round, I was able to acquire Dak Prescott. And I know what you're thinking, like, a quarterback, what baller move is this? It's not that big of a deal. But honestly, I think Dak is going to be a fantastic guy with Mike McCarthy. Like, I just said it, right? I just said this. So my quarterback wide receiver tandem this year is the Cowboys right now. So that's what I'm thinking. Like, I know this is a mock draft, but I'm planning on doing this later on in my real drafts when I do play. So I'm high on a lot of the, them boys. I'm high on these boys, but I'm really hoping that Dak's peak has yet to come. So he was really, really good last year. And under the scheme that didn't have him throwing the ball nearly that much as he could have, his potential wasn't fully reached. Mike McCarthy can unlock Dak Prescott. And it might be a level that we never expected him to even get to. And maybe this can help all the Dak supporters and all the people that would say that Dak is better than Wentz or whatever the case. I'm not involved in those arguments, especially because I think at this point Carson Wentz is the better quarterback overall anyway. But fantasy-wise, I think Carson cannot really compare to Dak Prescott from this standpoint. Carson does not have nearly as many weapons as Dak does right now. And honestly, Dak came in with a good amount of weapons as a rookie anyway. His weapons have only gotten better since he's been in the league. And it is going to look a little scary considering the fact that their first pick was used on CeeDee Lamb. Like, he has a plethora of people to throw to. It's insane. But Kyler Murray went first in this round, then Raheem Mostert, who I think is due for some timely regression, which probably means why he was drafted in the 7th round and not somewhere like the 3rd. Deebo Samuel went, another guy from San Francisco, because San Francisco is one of those teams right now that is very predicated on running the ball, but they do it shared by committee, and when they do throw the ball, it's not like they're sitting here targeting super deep threats, and we understand who the target guy there is on offense in the passing game anyway. Evan Ingram went right after Debo, and then Brandon Cooks went, and that's a Houston situation that honestly I haven't put a lot of thought into since it was announced of that trade, and they ended up getting Brandon Cooks and David Johnson. So we'll have to really kind of gauge it when we see the play, because right now the jury's still kind of out about Deshaun Watson. We understand he's a really, really great talent. He's one of those guys who can save a game and make a great play when he needs to. But at the same time, it hasn't been all consistent there yet. He hasn't been able to put it all there to play it at a consistent high level all the time. And that's something that we have to wait and see. He's kind of like a third-year NBA player when we see the talent is there, but we haven't really gotten it all together, or they haven't figured out how to do it nightly in and nightly out. That's kind of where Deshaun Watson is, in my opinion. I ended up drafting Dak Prescott, like I said, and then Jamison Crowder went, Tariq Cohen went, Julian Edelman went, Tyler Higbee, James White, and then Marvin Jones Jr. went off the board. Now we're moving into the nitty gritty. So this is round 8. So I just got to squeeze this in real quick. So I've been pretty worried about the collective backfield in Denver since the team got Melvin Gordon this offseason. And I saw Melvin Gordon went 5th, and then Phillip went in the 8th. So Phillip Lindsay went 8th, spoiler alert. And in an offense that has a lot of hungry mouths to feed, so let's keep in mind, they did draft one of the best. I think, honestly, they drafted the most talented wide receiver in the group. I think that they have, they drafted 2. I should probably name the one that got drafted, right? So they ended up getting Jerry Jeudy, and I think he is going to be really, really special, personally. They have Cortland Sutton, who already won in the draft. I had Cortland Sutton last year, a phenomenal guy. Love that guy. And they have KJ Hamler, who honestly could really be a good threat for them in both the passing and the run game, because he's capable of doing both. But he's more of a wide receiver. Then they have Noah Fant, whatever. Really sought after tight end last year, not so much this year, and probably partially because of the reason why. We all understand that there's a lot of mouths to feed on this offense. I didn't even name the running backs because we already know. And they have a quarterback who has not yet proven that he can feed all these mouths, right? We have no idea if Drew Lock has what it takes to really feed these guys. And that worries me, which is why I'm not as high on Cortland Sutton as I would like to be, personally. And even though I know that things are, looking good for them, and I understand all of that, as far as their talent around everybody else, if the quarterback isn't the guy, it's going to be tough. But to continue on, what happened here? This is where I probably messed up a little bit, right? This is the one where I think I might have made a mistake. And I'm going to own up to it about 65%, but hear me out, okay? So my 8th pick was Justin Jefferson, new wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. And it might have been a mistake that I wasn't too sure who to target for in this round, and I didn't want too many rookies on my roster, like I already said, and I already had one. And not to say that this guy would end up starting for me in most days, but, I did have one more particularly that I was targeting my back half that I knew would be there, and I still ended up getting him, but Justin Jefferson was kind of a miss site. I probably could have got somebody else that could have been a little more useful. Not to say that Justin Jefferson can't be good, because I think everybody who saw him in the draft figured, they're just really replacing Stephon Diggs with Stephon Diggs Part 2. And yeah, it feels like that, but we really don't know. And we know that Adam Thielen is the guy after Dalvin Cook. And we saw the reason why Stephon Diggs left or wanted to get out of there was because he didn't click with their current quarterback situation. And Justin Jefferson came off a season where they were slinging the football left and right, and that's just not the Vikings' MO. They're definitely a run-heavy team that does play in a play action, and they don't like to make mistakes with the football. And Joe Burrow was wilding last year, so we don't really know exactly what the vision is for this new style of play for the Minnesota Vikings, but I don't think it will be that. So I ended up getting Justin Jefferson. So just to review, Kerryon Johnson went, Matt Breida went, Deontay Johnson went, Zach Moss went for the Bills, Darren Henderson Jr. went, Sterling Shepard went right before my Justin Jefferson pick, Latavius Murray went afterwards, Philip Lindsay went. So even then, I figured Philip Lindsay was still there. I just couldn't do it. Jordan Howard went, Golden Tate went, and then Tevin Coleman went. So now we're about to get into the back half and finish out with a conclusion of how I felt about the draft overall and just my final thoughts. Coming up, GSMC. I have to talk about our good friends from Dollar Shave Club. And if you haven't heard that Dollar Shave Club has great razors, let me be the first to welcome you into the club. Stop buying expensive razors out of the habit and start thinking about joining Dollar Shave Club today. Right now, try out Dollar Shave Club's Ultimate Shave Starter Set for a one-time trial offer of only $5 plus free shipping. After that, you can continue to get an unimaginably smooth shave as razors refill, ship at regular prices to your door as often as you want. Dollar Shave Club's Ultimate Shave Starter Set comes with a 6-blade razor with a trimmer edge, 2 refill cartridges, and a 1-ounce tube of prep scrub, shave butter, and post-shave dew. Now, let me tell you, the prep scrub, my personal favorite. It's amazing. I have ingrown sometimes, and this helps nip that in the bud, legitimately. So, ditch your overpriced razor and join the club today with Dollar Shave Club's Ultimate Shave Starter Set for only $5. It has everything you need for an amazing shave. The 6-blade razor, shave butter, prep scrub, and post-shave dew, all shipped right for whenever you call home nowadays. After that first box, the razor refills ship at regular prices, not the schedule you want. Try the Ultimate Shave Starter Set today just for $5 plus free shipping at dollarshaveclub.com/GSMC Fantasy. That's dollarshaveclub.com/GSMC Fantasy. Welcome to the club.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Okay, final word here for the podcast right now. We got our last segment going, and we're still continuing on and traversing through this draft. 18 sheets in my hand has turned into 8. So we've dropped down. I'm sorry, that's actually wrong. We have 10 more sheets to go, basically, and we're almost through. And I wanted to quickly say before we finish out, of course, thank you guys for listening and all that stuff. So you guys rock. I hope everybody's enjoying this so far, because I am having a smashing time. Shout out to my boys in London, in Birmingham, England. You know, I got family out there. So my mother is a British citizen, a born Brit, amazing woman. I got a lot of family out in these places, man. You know, we got to go global, see the world and stuff. Hopefully after COVID, we can go do that. All right. Enough of the sidebars. Let's get into it. So the 10th round became the oh snap, I don't have a quarterback round pretty fast, as 25% of that round went quarterback. So Josh Allen went, and we're going to have to do our little bit of a Josh Allen soapbox here right now. So Josh Allen went, and I'm still not going to go there anymore. I was a Josh Allen fantasy fan, and thus he kind of forced me into becoming a Bills fan, you know, kind of by proxy. Like, I like the Bills because I used to play with them in Madden way back in my youth. and I like their color scheme, and that just kind of, I liked them ever since. They're like my AFC team of choice when I'm not rooting for the Saints, or when the Saints ultimately break my heart like they do many times. And, you know, I've grown to like Josh Allen as a player, and I know fantasy-wise the last few years he's been solid. Asterisk. Solid. I always will say this, Josh Allen for the past 2 years is a guaranteed 18. And we all know about that stint he had in his rookie year, where in the back half he was a top 5 fantasy quarterback performer, which was shrug because it didn't really translate to anything afterwards. But I don't think for fantasy purposes, I got to see what this year looks like for him. We know he got a really, really good wide receiver in Stephon Diggs to join him. That means John Brown is even more exciting as a player to be able to open up their offense. We know Devin Singletary, what he's capable of, but they also drafted Zach Moss, so we know they're in a running back by committee situation. And we know, he can do stuff with his legs, as in Josh Allen can. The problem is he's a guy who's limited his mistakes, but he's not dynamic because of that. The scheme isn't designed for him to be a discount Lamar or even a Cam Newton, right? He's not a discount Lamar Jackson or a discount Cam Newton. And when he does flash that kind of ability, caution gets thrown to the wind, or should I say to the other team, like we saw in the playoffs last year. And he's kind of on a weird track. I don't know if he's a guy that a lot of people in that Buffalo locker room feel like he's going to be the starter forever unless he proves it this year. I think this is the proving year for Josh Allen, because if he doesn't, I think Buffalo is at a team level as far as everybody else around his team where it's high enough to really compete. And if Josh Allen isn't the guy, they still can figure out another way to get this done. And that's to inject a new quarterback into this system and figure some things out. So Buffalo as a team, very, very good. Honestly, I think Buffalo underachieved last season in the playoffs, and they should have won that game. They should have not lost to Houston. I don't know what would have happened afterwards, but they should have won and gotten out of that round. But I digress. Christian Kirk went this round, Henry Ruggs III, Preston Williams, Robbie Anderson, Hunter Henry. I ended up taking Jared Cook. So Jared Cook was number 9. So I kind of skipped over because I had to get on the Josh Allen piece. But I think that Jared Cook is a fantastic guy. And I've been feeling like he's been a bit undervalued coming into this year's draft. So I got him at 9, which was one round above his ADP. So I kind of reached for him a little bit. But I think it was pretty fair, and hopefully a season filled with Drew Brees being healthy, I think he'll prove what he did near the tail end of the season was actually sustainable, even in a feature 2-man offense of the Saints that is just Alvin Kamara and can't guard Mike. Sharing a lot of the touches, sharing a lot of the sugar. I think that having him there is a really, really good thing for the Saints, and also I think having him in fantasy will be very, very profitable. And I really hope he doesn't actually prove me wrong. Antonio Gibson went afterwards. Matt Ryan went after that. Rob Gronkowski went super late, as we all see. You heard about the whole Madden rating thing, which was crazy. He got a 95 rating, jumping back into Madden after not playing football for 2 years. That was pretty wild. Darius Slayton came in afterwards. John Brown went, and then Emmanuel Sanders drafted. Now we're back in the 10th round. We just talked about that. Of course, that was Tyler Hawkinson, tight end for Detroit, which a lot of people kind of think might be something. Then Josh Allen went, who we just talked about. Curtis Samuel, Tom Brady, then Alexander Madison. Carson Wentz went right before my next pick, and I ended up taking Marlon Mack. So, okay. I went running back basically in the 10 round and round 11. And I took Marlon Mack and I took Sony Michel. So spoiler alert, Sony Michel is on my team. So 2 backs that are basically in a running back by committee system. One is for real, one is basically, and the Patriots don't want to talk about it. But I think Marlon Mack has potential to be a touchdown machine in the red zone. And I think Sony Michel was a bit of a flyer pick because I felt like I probably needed one more back, and I kind of sold my logic there. I didn't go best player available, and I just kind of took him. Because I think that he's gotten solid touches for a guy who basically has a lackluster year, and I wouldn't see why he wouldn't get the ball again, and hopefully he can turn it around. So, for example, right? So, the case for him is Michel recorded 247 carries last season, and he had 180 more than the next best player on the team, which was James White with 67. We all know James White is a pass catcher anyway. And Damian Harris, meanwhile, recorded just 4 carries as a rookie in total. So continuity could matter more than ever, and that could be really big. Of course, Damian Harris is on that team, and we should believe that he can get something. And James White and Shane Vereen recorded a combined 29 touches during their rookie campaigns. And then, of course, he bursted on the scene. And the only exception to this rule was, Michel himself. But that only happened because Jeremy Hill and Rex Burkhead suffered serious injuries. So looking ahead, they probably will just end up sharing carries anyway. And I wouldn't see why they wouldn't, because back in 2013, Stephen Ridley finished the season with 178 carries, while LeGarrette Blount finished with 153. And LeGarrette Blount was a pretty nice guy to get in fantasy because of his touchdown production, and that's why I ended up getting Marlon Mack, because I think if they get in the red zone, Marlon Mack is the guy. Unless, they want to let Jonathan Taylor earn it. But that's why I drafted him, because I felt, you know what, let's do it. Drew Brees went after Marlon Mack, then Tony Pollard, then McCole Hardman, then CeeDee Lamb, and Jerry Jeudy went after that. So somebody else got another Cowboys guy who I was secretly targeting myself. So, I didn't get him though. After that, Mike Williams, then Keyshawn Vaughn went, Noah Fant, I don't really know the pronunciation just yet. Hayden Hurst, who was a guy I thought about and I might target later on. I have to do some more research because I feel like the Atlanta Falcons might need a real third guy, and it might end up being him. Aaron Rodgers went. Sony Michel, there's my pick. Mike Gillespie went, then Matthew Stafford. Austin Hooper went, which is kind of interesting, as Austin Hooper went after Hayden Hurst. Rashad Perryman went, and let's talk. Rashad Perriman had got to have had the best get 3 games and get paid situation he could have got, because those games that he had where with the Buccaneers, where he scored quite a bit and he looked like this fantasy breakout guy for the last 3 weeks, was really interesting. So Daily Fantasy guys ate all of that up, and then he got paid. Okay, just a little small spot. Jalen Riker went right after that, and then Adrian Peterson. It's crazy. He's still kicking, man. He's still going. So, after those 2 rounds, right, I ended up going with Michael Pittman Jr. as my rookie flyer pick for the 12th round. And for no other reason than that he's a big possession receiver, that Rivers can just chuck the ball at him at will. And I think he has some can't guard Mike potential for sure. But now I'm not saying this guy is about to be the next Reggie Wayne or Andre Johnson or maybe even, can't guard Mike at full peak. But I do think he has the tools and the skill set to be like those guys, those big time possession receivers who can get down the field in the numbers and really, really have a large impact and take their size and use it to their advantage. So I ended up taking Michael Pittman Jr. because I think he might end up panning out and be something really special with them. Deshaun Jackson went in this round. Naheem Hines went. Paris Campbell went. Chris Herndon. Duke Johnson went, who I was looking at getting at this time to kind of supplement some picks that I made, like the Justin Jefferson pick. Chase Edmonds went right after. Then I got Michael Pittman. Then Anthony Miller went. Justin Jackson from Los Angeles went, the Chargers. And then Daniel Jones went. And Boston Scott. And then Ben Roethlisberger. So these last few rounds were just guys getting defenses and kickers. And I goofed up, guys. I made another mistake. Pivotal. Hurt me bad because the kicker spot in the last few years has been something that I really kind of reserved for one guy and one guy only. Defense is a crapshoot, really. You don't know how a defense is going to be for fantasy football, primarily because you have no clue what their turnovers are going to be. The turnovers and sacks, of course, and stuff like that are big time for defenses in fantasy. Like, those are the way you score, because it's almost impossible to hold somebody to not scoring. So you're very unlikely to hold that natural 10 as much as you would like to. So getting turnovers, getting, sacks, getting interceptions, fumbles, tackles for loss, those things are big time. And you won't really know until you really see how the season goes. And even then, you might have a defense that starts really strong for like the first 4 weeks and they teeter off because people adjusted, or they weren't as good as we thought, or people get hurt. Defense is just too much because you're having to monitor a team that has 11 people on the field rather than just one person. All right. But kickers, I love Will Lutz. He's on my favorite team. He's a guy that gets the job done, doesn't miss, is clutch, and he does the thing. And I lost him. I had him in my grasp. So I could have got him, and I just blanked. I didn't see him. Either I didn't scroll up a tad too high or whatever the case may be, but I'm hurt, man. Not gonna lie. I missed out on him, and that was bad. So I ended up taking Robbie Gould because I forgot that Will Lutz existed, I guess, for a last minute attempt. But in conclusion, the draft was a little bit chaotic, and I'm glad it was. It allowed me to get back in the swing of things, and I plan to do more of these more often. Sharing my results, good and bad, because, not everything is perfect, as we all make some mistakes. And as far as the draft results went, I think I took a situation that typically I find a bit rough, and I made the most of it. So getting 3 wide receivers who potentially could be top 15 in the league and at any moment in time is not horrible, right? It's not something that you can sniff at either. So I think for the better part of this situation, I did a good job. I think I did a good job. And I couldn't have probably done a better job of the added situation that I ended up putting myself in the first place. So in reality, kudos to me. I did that one. I'm playing. Yeah, man, that's the podcast for today, man. I hope everybody enjoyed that. Make sure you're doing your mock drafts. Make sure you're doing your homework. Make sure you're doing your real homework if you're in school. If you're doing online classes and stuff, stay strong. I know they're not the best, and it's rough on not only you, but also the administrators and the teachers, but we're all going to get through it here. So without a doubt, this is the GSMC, man. So don't forget, please like, subscribe, share the podcast, leave a review. It does us so much help. So much help. Please do. And don't forget to follow us, social media, Facebook and Twitter, GSMC Fantasy. This is Ethan. I'll see you all Tuesday real soon.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.